We're surrounded, and we're going to fight our way out of this damn thing. And I'm thinking, man, if I make it out of this one, that's the last one.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, hold on to it for this one. I'm bringing on my new friend, Dale Comstock, the author of the book American Badass. And, dude, this guy has just been through it and back. So hold on as we talk about his growing up in an Army household to joining the Army to going through Delta. And it is intense all the way following into his movie career. So hold on, guys. This is an amazing one. All right, guys, going to be a freaking awesome show today. I'm bringing in a true American badass onto the show today, my new buddy Dale Comstock, to walk you through some of the things he's into, some of the things he's done. Guys, this is going to be a killer episode. Hold on to your asses and let's get growing. So, Dale, welcome to the show, my friend. Please share your story.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. So I'm actually talking to you from Bali, Indonesia, is where I live right now. I have two homes, one in Panama City Beach, Florida, that just got wiped out by that hurricane. Well, luckily, my apartment's still standing there, so one of the few that's actually survived the damage. And I have a home here in Bali, Indonesia, and I also run a company here, a business, security business. So hence just the main reason I'm in Bali. But living a great life here, having traveled the world, and man, I've lived and worked all over like 77 countries my whole lifetime. And I will tell you that Bali is by far my favorite place.
I gotta say, I haven't been, man. So
it's amazing.
I'll have to put that one on the bucket list. 77 countries, though. That's a lot of damn countries. What the heck did you do to get to 77 countries?
I was an Army brat. My father was in the service, so growing up in Germany, spent most of my childhood life in Germany. My mom's German. So we traveled Europe quite a bit while, growing up. And just my military travels took me, everywhere. I mean, the only place I haven't been yet, and I'm only like a hop, skip, and jump away, is Australia. So that's my next stop, just to check that block, But
as a kid, most people are like, I want to go to Australia, and it's like the last place you haven't been.
Right, yeah, exactly, and I'm going to get there, though. But, yeah, I've just been fortunate, some of my employment has taken me around the world like everybody else, the Middle East. I think I've worked in every country in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. I worked in Hong Kong for a while as a running bodyguard detail there for a multi-billionaire investment banker for a while, and which has actually brought me to Indonesia. I met my girlfriend there 4 or 5 years ago, and basically I followed her back to Indonesia just to keep up with her. And then after I got here, I looked around. I said, "Well, man, there's some business opportunities here." I started looking at the security climate here. Anyways, that's what actually caused me to stay here and build a business. So I actually provided this time explosive detector dogs for all the resort hotels here in Bali. I also do narcotics and what I call interdiction dogs, and that's just believe it or not, I didn't even want to get into canines, but kind of got nudged into it, and it's actually what's keep the lights on and the food on the table right now. But, I do a lot of the other security stuff as well, particularly nuclear security, petrochemical, critical infrastructure protection. That's kind of my specialty. So now that I got the canine business run, I'm actually expanding out to Manila. I'll be setting up shop there in January. So I've already done the groundwork for that, and I've linked up with some other Americans over there that have a business there. And then my next step is Pakistan and India. I'm going to be the canine kingpin of Southeast Asia.
I just see you in like 3rd or 4th grade, the teacher going, "Dude, what the hell do you want to be when you grow up?" And you're like, "I'm going to be a canine kingpin."
It's really weird. It's, like I said, I had no intention of doing any of this, but there's a need for it, and it works. I've been training dogs since I was about 15 years old professionally, and so I've got a lot of experience at it, and it just kind of works out for me. Basically, a childhood hobby turned into a career for me here. So, and I actually don't even do anything. My girlfriend literally runs everything from soup to nuts now. She manages all the training, the handlers, HR, every piece of it. So I just kind of come here.
So I would say this. So what, are you just the pretty face of the organization? But I can see you, and I know that's not the case. So
that's all I do now, So I'm a little disadvantaged because I can't speak the language, and she can. So all my handlers and supervisors are all speak Bahasa and Balinese. So I just kind of stand there with my teeth in my mouth and let her do all the talking. And it gets kind of boring after a while. But anyway, so that's where I'm transmitting from is Bali. That's why I'm spending at least half my year here and half my year in Panama City Beach. But, my journey has been kind of an interesting one, to say the least. And actually, a lot of it was not planned. It just kind of worked out that way. I kind of take you back a little bit. 1981 is when I actually joined the Army. Very much to my father's chagrin, dismay. He did not like that idea, even though he was in the Army for 20 years. He actually wanted me to go to college because nobody in my family, either side, had been to college. They were lucky to graduate high school. Most of my dad had 11th grade education. My mom had 9th grade education. So the plan was for me to be the first college grad out of the family. Well, I was just a total fail, man. I hated school, and I really loved the Army, man. Growing up in that culture, especially in Germany. In the tight-knit military communities, it was like a big family there, and I just missed all that and couldn't wait to go back to it. So I didn't even tell my father. I just snuck down to the recruiter's office and signed up at the beginning of my senior year, and then when I told him, I broke his heart, But I did make one promise, so I told him that even though I would join the military, I would earn my college degree, and I would do that at least for him. And so actually what ended up happening is for my 20 years, I managed to get my master's degree before I retired. And then I got my doctorate actually about 10 years ago now on deployment as a contractor overseas. So, but anyway, I joined in 81, went to the 82nd Airborne Division. My recruiter lied to me like they all do. Told me I wanted to be an airborne ranger. Said, Roger that, you're good to go. And then the day I left, said, hey, sorry, I don't have any more ranger slots. You got to go to 82nd Airborne Division. So he said, but it's no problem. Yeah, was that ever a lie, right? And so I did my first 4 years there, and then I was at a crossroads. You know, I was married. I had just turned 22, and I had a little baby girl, my oldest daughter at the time. Hell, she's 33 now. But so I was at the point where I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I stay in? Do I get out? You know, I was in the 82nd. I was in the LURPS with the 82nd, 325th Airborne Infantry, and I just wasn't being challenged, you know. And so I remember calling my mom and saying, hey, Mom, said, I'm thinking about getting out of the Army. You mind if me and my wife and kid come live with you for a little while, you know? And her response was, no, not no, but hell no. so okay, well, that answers that question. So I decided I'm going to re-enlist. And about the same time, I got a letter from Delta saying, hey, you're eligible to put in an application, you know, for you know, consideration, you know. So I decided that's what I want to do. So I went through that whole process. And I made it, at the time, one of the youngest operators at the age of 23 to make it into. So I did my 10 years there. And while I was there, I went through the Q course, 18 Bravo Light and Heavy Weapons. And then in 1996, I went to 3rd Special Forces Group. Spent about a year and a half in group operations as a assistant officer NCO. And then I went down and took over ODA 394 until I retired, which was right pre 9/11, about 60 days before 9/11 happened. And actually not even that long, about 30-something days. And at that point, I already built another company, Global Security Consultants. And then 9/11 happened. This nuclear security industry called me. I ended up going into the industry. And pretty much I only had one competitor, and I put him out of business pretty fast. His technique, I guess, so to speak, his kung fu was pretty dated, and I just couldn't keep up, you know. So it was a boon for me. Literally, I went in there and just really did well. There were 64 nuclear power plants, 117 reactors in the United States. I serviced about 42 of those and made really good money. I hired a lot of guys from the military come in as subcontractors for me. And we did everything from threat and vulnerability assessments to testing, research and development, training, all aspects of security when it comes to a nuclear energy station. So in 2004, we sold that company. Me and my partner and I, we sold it to G4S. Basically what they did was they bought us up because we were competition. So they gobbled us up and put us out of business, you know, but they paid us for it, which is okay. That was
it worked. Did you guys have the California nuclear plant right after? Because I was not long after that. I remember driving down, was at the I-5 or the I-1, whatever the hell that freeway is, and they literally were stopping every car on that freeway and inspecting it before you could go anywhere near the plant. It was wild. They have a whole freeway shut down. They had dogs. They had everything. So.
San Luis Obispo, San Onofre, all the nuclear plants down there. We also service them as well. But at the same time though, so right after 9/11, I got the company going, and then soon after that, I got recruited and I went and worked for OGA and paramilitary contractor for those guys. And so I did both concurrently. I had my company, and then I went and did this thing. That stint was supposed to only be like 1 year just to check the block. Go ahead, did it, you know. And hell, I stayed there for 9.5 years. So sold my company in 2004. I reincorporated. I did business as Risk Control Institute. Got reconnected in the nuclear industry. And then I'm kind of giving you the Reader's Digest version. 2011, I sold that company to another company. Worked for Intrepid as the name of the company, as basically their vice president running my company underneath in their vertical, doing the same thing, critical infrastructure protection. Funny thing is I had a service agreement already, and it's basically that's what they were doing. They were buying my service agreement with the nuclear industry. And I went to work right away, and within 6.5 months, almost 7 months, my first contract yielded $1.5 million. That was me and just one other consultant with nuclear security. So then I get a phone call from Hollywood, and somebody had referred me, and they said, hey, we want to interview you, blah, blah, blah. There's a TV show on Discovery Channel called One Man Army. Would you like to be on that? And I was like, well, it'd be kind of cool to do that, you know. Or just another chapter in my book, you know. And so, I didn't think I was going to make it, but I got interviewed, and lo and behold, I ended up on One Man Army. And then what happened was NBC called me, hey, we loved you on one-man army, you know, we're going to have another big show, Stars and Stripes, you know, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to be on that? And I'm like, really? Man, it was lightning strike twice or what, you know? So, so I ended up on that. And interesting with that about that show was they had over 1,000 candidates. And they knocked it down to 8 of us. The 8 of us that got picked, they brought us out to NBC. We did all the in-studio interviews. And then, lo and behold, I was paired up with Terry Crews. Of course, Chris Cobb was out there, the American Sniper, and 6 other guys. So that was kind of a turning point for me. At that point, I also made the decision to resign from the other job. I shouldn't say walk away, but resign. For myriad reasons, I was actually at a point where I was walking away from ambushes just barely, you know, and I'm thinking, man, one of these times is, you know, they're going to get me, you know. At my age at the time, I thought, you know, get a little old, a little long in the teeth. And this was 2011, so 7 years ago. I was 48 years old. And I decided, you know, it's probably, you know, in fact, I remember sitting on the X one night. We're surrounded, and we're going to fight our way out of this damn thing. And I'm thinking, man, if I make it out of this one, that's the last one. You know, it's over, man.
How many times did you say that to yourself?
No, that actually was the one for me there. And, you know, I had to do a lot of thinking, and I had a lot of time to think about it, too. We were actually boxed in and trapped. So anyway, I'll share that story later. But so I ended up on, you know, television again with NBC Stars and Stripes. That led to me being approached by another group that wanted to manage me, that also wanted to start a production company in Los Angeles, and they were right-leaning. Okay, so they were all from Dallas, Texas. So what they wanted to do is build a veteran-owned, veteran-based, veteran-supported production company and hire veterans to be actors and, you know, do all that kind of stuff, so, which is really cool. And I said, yeah, I'll definitely sign for that. So I'll be the poster boy for it. So that's how I ended up getting involved with them. And since that time, we made about 7 movies, mostly zombie movies. We kind of try to keep it apolitical, you know, and everybody can get behind killing zombies, right? So it's a lot of fun. I mean, so anyways, we've got those on the shelf right now, and we're in the process of selling those to whoever comes, you know, whether it's Amazon or Netflix or whoever is ready to buy them. So that's how I kind of got involved in the Hollywood thing, you know. And then, of course, all the other stuff I did concurrently, you know, kind of finally brought me here to Indonesia's. So I'm the kind of guy that I like to think of myself as a journeyman. You know, I don't have a 9-to-5 job where I get up and fly a desk all day. You know, one day I wake up and I'm, you know, a security consultant. Tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll be whatever. I'll write a book. The next day I'll get up, I'll go do tactical training somewhere for the police. The day after that, I'll go be an underwear model. You know, it's like, you know, every day is different. And, so, you know, I enjoy life, man, and I like it that way because I get bored really easy. And right. I know that, you know, I wouldn't make a good employee. After a couple of days, I'll start breaking things and making people mad at me and stuff. So I enjoy the life I live, you know. I've always been – go ahead.
No, let me ask. When you're going through special ops training and you're getting all this, you know, I'm going to be this badass that's kicking indoors and everything else. At the same time, did you have a makeup purse with you so you could get your makeup right for your movie career?
That would be the SEALs. Thank you. You're getting me confused, okay?
No, I'm just busting your shot. But in truth, you know, what was it? I mean, really, what ran through your head when you're like, okay, I've done all this crazy things, you know, firefights and everything else, and now I'm going to be this actor, TV show guy. You know, what was that transition like?
Well, actually, so interesting you asked that question because in actually my book, American Badass, I talk about that in the beginning. So I go to Hollywood and so you assume everything's fake, you know, and it's going to be super safe because, you know, all the OSHA rules and, you know, it's blah, 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 liability. And for the most part, it is pretty safe. But, you know, like I say, sometimes shit happens. So on NBC Stars and Stripes with Terry Crews, you know, I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but it did really well. It aired right after the Olympics. And our show, the first show, had over 5 million viewers on it. But one of the events that we had to do, Terry Crews and I, was we had to do a helocast into a lake, about 7,000 feet elevation. It was a cold lake, too, I remember. And we had to helocast in with our gear on, and we had to swim to a Zodiac, you know, get in the Zodiac, and then do a beach landing, assault, you know, and shoot targets and blow things up and carry stuff, you know, and all part of the show. Well, Terry's a pretty big guy. I was pretty good size as well. And we were both pretty lean, and everybody called us the killer grandpas, because we're both grandpas, guys on there, but we're definitely the biggest dudes on there. And we made a good team, man. We really got along well. But so we had to do this event, and Terry, he tells me, he goes, hey, man, I'm not a really good swimmer. I just want you to know that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, cool. So at least, that's good information to know, and we'll try to figure something out. Now, the reality was, I kind of cheated, I guess, a little bit. But what I did is I emptied out a bunch of water bottles, right? And I put the caps on, and I put them in his cargo pocket in his pants, hoping to give him a little bit of buoyancy,
Yeah.
And then, of course, I coached him, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is what's going to happen, You're going to jump in, and then you're going to go under, but just hang on. You're going to bob back to the top, just relax, and we're going to take our time and swim to the boat, And, well, anyways, it didn't quite work out that way. The water was really choppy, really cold. And we hadn't really, our gear had no buoyancy whatsoever. So we jump in, he goes down, takes a while to come up. I come up, and I realize also, man, this is not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. And right away, he just starts struggling. And part of the problem was he was getting all these waves in his face, so he started drinking water, right? And that just made him panic even more. And I had told him earlier, I said, listen, things get a little out of hand. I said, just relax. I'm going to be really close by, and I'll come up behind you. I'll grab you, by the back of your body armor. And I said, I'll tow you. You just relax and just kick your legs, and we'll make this, right? And so he starts freaking out. I mean, he's like really freaking out. So I swim up behind him. I grab him, and I'm talking to him. Hey, man, hang on. Just relax. Well, it just got worse and worse, right? our weapons got tangled up. We had them slung to our sides, and, we got two big old dudes, man, basically it was like a cat fight in the lake, tied up in their gear. So
I'm laughing. I mean, this is a serious ordeal. I mean, we were laughing about it.
No, he was drowning, man. He was drowning. He was freaking out. I mean, he was freaking out, right? And of course, when people drown, man, they grab onto you, you'll hold them up out of the water, and It doesn't work that way, right? And so he was flailing around in there, and then the water bottles popped out of his cargo bucket, right? Like shot right up like two buoys. And he saw those, and that's when he really freaked out. And I was like, holy cow, he was pulling me under. I was trying to get back up, and we're just rolling around, and I waved to the safety boats, and they were actually quite a ways away. Probably further than they needed to be. So it took them a while to get over to us, but they got there, and they grabbed them, and they pulled them in the boat, and then I had to continue mission by myself, and do the whole event without him. And he was pretty upset about it, and so I didn't really think much of it, other than that, wow, Terry Crews almost drowned with me hanging on to him.
Okay, I know you want media exposure, but being the guy who drowned Terry Crews is not the media exposure you want.
Well, actually, I wouldn't drown him. I would save the guy. Well, then the next event, our next group of guys was another guy, Dovek Quince, right? Same thing. He's even worse off than Terry. He's out there just freaking out, and they had to recover him out. So that's two guys that almost drowned the same day in the lake, right? There was a lot of trash talking after that because both guys are black guys, It's like, I go, man, they're just adding to the stereotype, it just made it even worse. But so then, okay, that was cool. And then,
hey, just for the record, just so for our civilian listeners, in the military, there's a lot of joking and smoking that happens. One of the funny jokes we would always talk about is black guys can't swim, right? And it's complete fabrication, but it's a funny joke that we get thrown around all the time.
Well, it was all over the news, right? I mean, they made a big deal about it on the news, like it was some kind of conspiracy, like, okay, they continue to try to drown the black guys. What the heck? That wasn't the case. Anyway, so then I ended up on Discovery Channel again, doing another show that never aired. And the reason it didn't air was we had a fatality actually 3 fatalities on the set. So it was kind of a cool show. The whole concept was kind of cool. It was going to be called Lone Operator, and basically we were going to take the show was two guys. In this case, the first episode was a Green Beret and a SEAL, and they're going to go through this pipeline, and it's like a vetting process, and they had to do all this cool stuff like tradecraft, and secret scroll stuff, and just kind of some cool stuff. And then at the end, they had a mission, right? At the end, they had to break into a car, recover a briefcase, pick the locks on it, and get the contents out, and all this kind of stuff. So that's the way it was supposed to go. Well, what ended up happening one night, up north of LA in the desert there. It's the same place where I don't remember Vic Morrow was killed on a helicopter by a helicopter motor strike. He was cheering a little Vietnamese kid on the set years ago. And so we were in the same area. And basically, like I said, I'll just, give you a condensed version of the story. But on the set, it was myself, it was a guy named Joe Tedeye, and another guy, Mike Donatelli. And so the three of us were standing around, and this particular evolution was around 3:30 in the morning. What it required was one guy would narrate while the SEAL was driving through the desert like a crazy man, narrate, talk about, the follies of driving fast at night in the desert with a civilian vehicle, blah, blah, blah. And then the other guy, which would have been me, would have tossed a rucksack out on top of his SEAL, right? His car would have broke down. He would call for help because that's what they do, right? They're always calling for help. And so I'm just joking with you. So I was going to throw a backpack out of it and thought I was going to get me covered, but I was going to say, here's your backpack and Charlie Mike, right? So that was how it was supposed to play out. I ended up doing the narration. Mike got on the helicopter and he threw the backpack out. It was just a real skeleton crew that night. A couple cameramen. They had one guy on a boom with a light on it, filming the car, and then the helicopter. And the helicopter was a civilian ranger, and the pilot was non-military, non-veteran, but I thought he was a veteran actually because he was wearing a flight suit and stuff, and he was giving us the briefing for the night. Okay, when he flies, okay, this is what he's going to do, blah, blah, blah. If for some reason the helicopter crashed, don't come near the helicopter. You got jet fuels. Turning rotor blades, people get killed, blah, blah, blah. So he gives us all the safety briefing. And I remember asking him, I said, because there was no illumination out there at night. And in fact, the temperatures were down in the 20s. It's super cold. And I asked him, I said, are you going to be flying under NVGs? And he's like, what are NVGs? I was like, oh man, night vision goggles. No. And I was like, well, how are you going to fly it? He goes, well, he had driven the route with the car earlier that day, right? So he knew kind of what he was going to fly. And I said, okay, I guess that's how they do it. So he pretty much flew, on instruments and no white lights, no NVGs, and zero illumination. Bottom line was a helicopter crashed down into a wadi and right in front of us. And I ended up going down there and I found the wreckage, found the bodies. And unfortunately, everybody was killed except for one person. And I won't say who the person was, but his family knows who I'm talking about. He actually passed away in my arms. There was nothing I could do to save the guy. But I remember standing there thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, man, this is supposed to be Hollywood. And I've got 3 casualties laying right here, this is supposed to be just a make-believe movie thing, and here I am, basically trying to keep a guy alive. The other guys were, they were already dead when I found them, but it was just kind of, I just had to gasp for air. I'm like, Jesus, man, this is a nightmare or what happened? Right. It didn't get any better after that because then it was, everybody showed up. The highway patrol, the ambulances, fire department, NTS, everybody came out there, man. And so FFA or FAA investigation started, and then the interviews and then, they want to know what happened, how it happened, and who did what, who said what, it's like, geez, man, it was pretty bad. And pretty much the show was canceled because of that. Took a few years for everybody to litigate it and move on. So, but yeah, that was kind of some of my experiences. That's kind of the more tragic thing that happened.
Tough, man. I mean, you go from doing military trainings and thinking that the world's gonna, you're gonna see some of the toughest things you got to deal with when you're in the field, to come back to fantasy land with Hollywood and everything else, and then you end up losing. That's tough, man. That's tough.
Yeah, and the sad part is one of those guys, basically my friend, passed away. He was actually a Ranger SF. He's actually one of the unit, his ops NCO. He's a vet and been there, done that. And the messed up part was at the time, we had similar families. We're both married to Hispanic women. We both had 3 kids, and we're both boxers. We boxed together while we were there. It just had there's a lot of commonality there. We got along really well. And sadly, it was a last minute decision that was made to have him throw the backpack out instead of me. And we all talked about it. He said, hey, I'll throw the rucksack out, because I kind of have a background in off-road driving, and it just made sense for the betterment of the show that I do the narration piece to talk about it, because he didn't know what to say. And he goes, no, let me throw the rucksack out. It makes sense. So we swapped out the last second. Otherwise, it would have been me. And I look back, and so that's something I carry with me every day. It's like, man, like that, we switch seats and I'm here and he's not, so that's always been a hard pill to swallow. And it's taken a long time and I've never really gotten over it. It's that we call that remorse that you have, survivor's remorse, It is what it is.
I mean, everything unfortunately happens for some sort of reason, and it seems unfortunately that a lot of things happen in those last second decisions, and
nobody did anything wrong. They still don't know why that helicopter crashed. I have my theory on it because I've watched it crash, and it was flying flat and stable at about 200 feet AGL, and then all of a sudden it just did a 45-degree nosedive straight down into this gully. And my first thought was, holy cow, man, is this? Because there was no illumination, and I thought that's just a pretty ballsy dive, and I thought he was going to come up, flare, and do something really cool, And so I started counting, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and I was like, man, he's not coming up. And that's when I realized, actually, I didn't even realize, I didn't know what happened. I knew something happened. I just wasn't sure what, because when I got to the edge of the wadi, I was by myself. I had a coal miner's light on my head, so I run down into this wadi, and I'm running down, and there's nothing. I can't find nothing. I'm like, man, I know it's got to be here somewhere, but I could smell the jet fuel. Okay, and my pants were soaked in it from running through the brush, so I know it crashed, right? But there was nothing left of that helicopter. It was confetti. I mean, just pieces, little tiny pieces and parts. And finally, I saw a segment of the tail boom, small piece of it, and a piece of the transmission, the shroud, the housing for it, just a little piece of it. So I knew, okay, I'm probably at the point of impact, and I started kind of looking to my front, and that's when I started, finding the bodies and everything else from that point on. But yeah, aside from that, just the whole Hollywood experience, it's interesting, Fortunately, I've been on a lot of sets that the guys, the producers, they're pro-military. In fact, I've brought a lot of veterans on, play supporting roles and be as seconds. They get a pretty good paycheck for the day, get to hang out,
Well, Dale, just so you know, we're friends now, and I have one life goal. I just want to be an extra. I don't even got to be somebody like totally cool, but I want to be in a movie just so I can say, look, that one little dude in the back corner there that's waving, that's me in a movie.
It wouldn't be hard to do, man. I think I brought 50 guys out on one set for a couple of days, actually, and they made pretty good little money on their pocket, and it was cool for them to do that. And that was so the groups that I've been working with, fortunately, are more like that. But I've been on sets with some really the stereotypical jackasses, it's like, I mean, just, wow, some of these people, they got issues. You wonder how they can be actors. But, it's been, all in all, for the most part, it's been a pretty good experience. I've learned a lot. I was actually surprised that on an operational level, how much goes into producing a movie. There's a lot of logistics to support it, a lot of moving parts, a lot of admin stuff, man. I mean, it's a major operation. Even a small show is a major operation. So I was actually pretty impressed and humbled by that.
It's pretty cool. I mean, because, a lot of us get to see just the other side of it, right? We get to see all the after effects and, movies when it comes out. It's not often you get to see what goes into making it and all the stunt setup and, everything else to make it look like, to something we can enjoy. I mean, it's fun to hearing things like Terry Crews is a good dude because, he comes across as a good guy in the movies and everything else. But, there's other actors, like you're saying, that you already get that vibe. Like, dude, I wouldn't even want to sit next to that dude and drink a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, as far as Terry's concerned, actually, all the guys and girls that were on that set for Stars and Stripes, Layla Ali, Dovette Quince, Eva Torres, Dean Cain, Superman, they all were really, Todd Palin, Sarah Palin's husband, they were all squared away, very decent people, very pro-military and very humble, man. We had just enjoyed the time with them. I particularly got, built a good friendship with Terry, and he is, I mean, There's no gray area when it comes to Terry Crews. This guy is just super humble and loves the military and very respectful. He's just a really good dude, and I'd actually call him a friend. And then there's, like I said, there are the other extremes out there too.
Yeah, but that comes with everything, man. I mean, anywhere you go, you got the really good guys, and then you got the guys you're like, dude.
Yeah. But, so anyways, that was kind of, and I've actually had the opportunity. I've been told many times that if I moved to Los Angeles, I could probably stay gainfully employed on these sets a lot. And I've also been told by my management team and other producers that I could potentially be the next Danny Trejo just because I got this stupid scary look, right?
Yeah, you're never gonna play like the lead romantic character,
right? It's only girls, Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't interest me then. And I had choices and thought hard on it. I was, invited to come out and live out there, and pretty much with, pretty solid guarantees that I could stay involved and build a career out of this. And I decided it's just not who I am. At the end of the day, culturally, the way I was raised from the military, I didn't want to do it. It just didn't feel right. For me, I like doing things with substance. The security world, that gives me, it has substance for me. It's something that, it's meaningful. It has purpose, and I'm doing something for the betterment of humanity, and so I enjoy that. It's challenging. I mean, depending on what I'm doing, if it's nuclear security, it's like super challenging. Trying to organize our detail or train canines to find explosives, To me, that's a challenge. That's what I enjoy about it. So the other part of it, the money, money's not everything, man. Yeah, money's nice, but at the end of the day, the other thing I do, by the way, is I also do life coaching, right? So optimal performance coaching. So I got a lot of clients that come to me looking to improve their lives, personal and professional level. And I have a lot of clients that are very wealthy. And it's amazing sometimes some of the wealthiest people out there have a lot of issues they can't go off. And I usually tell them, yeah, you're a multi-millionaire, but I'm richer than you because I actually get to do more things in life. And you have to live through me vicariously, so I would rather have my life than have your money. So that's kind of how I look at it. But I had that opportunity. I still have the opportunity. I can make that kind of money. But you got to, at the end of the day, you get one life, and you got to make the most of it. And this is what I'm living the dream. So
I think it's an important message because a lot of people, especially the ones that went through the military. I mean, most of us that went through the military weren't your cream of the crop wealthy kids. We're usually knuckleheads that weren't best suited for other walks in life. So at some point, as a young buck, you always get out and you're like, dude, money's the answer to everything. It's a great message to let them know that money won't buy you happiness. Being broke will sure make you miserable. But
money helps, but it's not everything.
Right, absolutely.
Poor people say that, people, I always, joke. Poor people always say money, doesn't matter, but it does obviously matter. Money's good for a lot of reasons, but for me, I'm happy with just making enough money to put food on the table, keep the lights on, and be able to do some things with my life. But I don't have to fly business class everywhere I go or stuff like that. In fact, I'm pretty humble about it. Even when I have the money to fly business class, I'll fly coach. It's like I'm kind of a minimalist in that way too. I
don't know, man. I just did a 6-hour flight to Ireland, and I was the premier class right below business class. I'm buying business class next time. That 6-hour flight was a long damn flight in a little seat. I'm just saying.
No, it's like 29 hours.
Yeah, screw that.
29 hours. That's what it takes for me to fly from Florida all the way to Bali. And now because I've had to change, because I used to fly to Jakarta, because I lived in Jakarta. Now that I live in Bali, I've got to overnight in Hong Kong and then catch a regional flight into Bali. So it's actually longer, but normally it's 29 hours of just travel time, not including the overnight in Hong Kong. So yeah, in the military, I mean, I can sleep on my head, I'm used to it. Look, I've slept in business class with the beds and stuff,
Right.
And then I can't even sleep.
It's too comfortable. It's too posh.
Yeah, exactly. It's too comfortable, It's like, so, I don't know. But you're right. It's not always about the money. I would rather have the life that I have lived and experience so many things that most people will never be able to do, especially these guys are, man, one of my principals I was protecting was a multi-billionaire. And that guy he hired me because he couldn't even fight, right? And because guys were picking up on his wife all the time. And it's like, I'm thinking, man, what I want, and then, I'm escorting these guys around all the time, and their life is so boring. They can't do anything with their money. They can't really enjoy their life because they're always paranoid, and the reality is when you're making that kind of money, it's almost like a game, a power game. You compete against the other billionaires, see who's going to make more money. It's just crazy way they think. But they missed out. They've missed out on a lot. Like I said, the life I live, I'm happy with that. I get to experience a lot, and then in that way, it pretty much makes me rich. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you think all this is going to take you, brother? Well, two things I want. One, I'd love for you to give some sort of message to the guys transitioning out. You know, the guys that are getting out and they're trying to figure out what's my next move in life. So I want you to talk to them. But, you know, I'm also really curious, you know, where's all this going to take? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so when I got out, I actually retired in the Army in 2001. So for the last 17 years, pretty much I've worked for myself, okay? And look, I don't have any special skills or anything like that, right? I just decided that when I got out that I was going to do things my way. I would have my own business. I would hire military guys, which I did. Basically, I would do what I wanted to do. And there's nothing that I can't do. And unfortunately, a lot of guys get out of the military, and I've seen this happen. You know, a guy gets out, he's a senior NCO, for example, and he gets out, he's driving the roach coat on he's selling shirts to used cars because for whatever reason, he hasn't properly prepared himself for life, or he didn't think there was anything more for him to do. You know, he just kind of put himself in a box. And what always bothered me was when you watch a command sergeant major, you know, when he retired along with, you know, the battalion commander, you know, the battalion commander would go off and get some kind of white-collar job at a corporate, you know, executive level, and he got the blue-collar technical job somewhere, you know, and I'm like, man, you know, who's really, you know, at the end of the day, man, it's like the sergeant major was really the guy in charge. He was really leading the troops. He was really managing everything, you know, and it's just, you know, the mindset is wrong. And so I really, you know, I talk about to the NCOs quite a bit, the enlisted guys, and tell them that there's so much more potential out there, and your only limitations are yourself. Again, you know, I went right in the military out of high school. I earned my bachelor's degree and my master's degree while I was in the Army. In fact, the entire time I was in the Army, 20 years, 18 and a half years was kicking indoors and humping a rucksack, okay? And I still managed to get my college degree, and I burned a kid midnight oil. I would take my books with me to the field. I did whatever I had to do to get my degree because I knew how important it would be later on in life. And I did. And so, but, you know, I'm a perpetual student. I never stopped learning. So even after that, and when I went to OGA, I started working on my, you know, postgraduate degree. I'm always trying to learn more. And the other thing is I always try to experience everything, at least try something out and see what I think of it, you know. And with every little victory, you know, I'm empowered, you know, to do it something more, you know. And with every defeat, you know, I'm more resolute to continue, but I never quit. And that's actually one of my little slogans. And, you know, and that's how I look at life. You know, there's nothing that you can't do if you just put your mind to it. One of the things about the unit, when I was in the unit, at the time, Colonel Garrison was the battalion, or not the battalion, but the Delta commander. By far one of the better commanders we ever had. And interestingly enough, he was never an operator. He was the only Delta commander that wasn't actually an operator. But he was actually one of the better commanders we had. And I remember him, you know, he would always preach. In fact, he was the kind of commander that would come down to the team room after work and come into your team room and have a beer with your team, you know, and just shoot the shit, which was really cool, man. You know, he was just that cool about it. But he used to always tell us, man, there's nothing you can't do. He goes, because of who you are, because of your mindset, there's absolutely nothing you can do. You just got to figure out how you're going to do it. Just come up with a plan, but it can be done. And that attitude that he kind of shared with us, and of course, at the time, the Army motto was be all that you can be. You know, those kind of things actually had a lot of impact on the kind of person I became. Because I always thought about that. It's like, be all you can be, be all you can be, be all you can be. You know, you can do anything. You just gotta outthink it, man. You just gotta, you know, don't look at it as a problem, look at it as a challenge, right? And so there's a difference, right, between, you know, and so whenever I want to do something, it's like, this is not a problem, it's a challenge. I'm going to beat this thing, you know? Why? Because I'm better than this issue. So I've always got this challenger's mindset. In fact, in my coaching classes, you know, I share some stories with my guys basically on self-actualization, which is basically becoming this person you want to be, which, by the way, only 2% of the population can actually self-actualize. 98% of the population never becomes the person they want to be, okay, never reaches their goals for a myriad of reasons. But I always use the example, when I was an amateur boxer, when you're an amateur boxer, you come into the ring, you're ready to go in there, you're looking at your opponent going, man, he looks scary. He's got long arms. He looks really muscular. And all you're thinking about, I hope he don't beat the shit out of me. I hope he don't knock me out. I hope I don't get hurt. I hope people laugh at me, you know. And, oh, God, I hope I win, you know. And then you go there swinging like a windmill and pray to God you knock him out first, right? It's not a very classy act, right? But as you get better and then when you turn pro, your whole attitude's different, right? So I looked at the amateur guy as a problem. This guy's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem if I get knocked out. It's going to be a problem if I get a broken nose. It's going to be a problem if my girlfriend's laughing at me, you know. when I turned pro, I wasn't thinking about it. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get hit in the nose. I'll probably break my nose. It's going to hurt. I'm going to get hit a lot. You know, I'm good with that. People are going to laugh at me. They're going to throw shit in the ring at me. You know, that's just part of the game, you know. So I accept that part. So I'm not even going to worry about it. I might get knocked out. I might even get killed. I mean, I've seen guys literally get killed with one punch in a boxing ring, you know, so I know it's possible. But what I do is I would go in there and I look at, okay, how am I going to win this fight? Am I going to take this guy out to the third or the fourth round, and am I going to take him out with a three-point combination? Am I going to kind of showboat a little bit, or I'm just going to go do business right away and get this over with, you know? So I went in there with a different mindset, a strategy. You know, I already knew I was confident. I wasn't waiting for getting hurt. Now I was in there going to win. So I use that same analogy in life. People worry about, oh, my God, you know, I don't have enough money. I need to make some money. You know, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know, it becomes this problem, right? And they become reactive to try to fix it. I don't worry about that, man. You know, when I don't have money, I don't go, oh, my God, I don't have any money. What am I going to do? I'm going to go pawn my stuff. I'm like, you know what? It's not a problem. It's a challenge. Watch this. I'm going to go make some money. And I do it every time. I can make money. I can do it, right? It's crazy how I can do it. Stuff I can do is nuts, right? And so I get it done. But I would tell guys transitioning, man, you know, you can do anything you want to do. You're the only limitation to your potential, man. It's your mindset. You've got to change your mind. You've got to think big and know that you're probably going to fail a lot, but failing is part of learning and growing. So learn from your mistakes, go back to the drawing board, and then figure out again what's your new attack strategy going to be to get you to your objective, you know, and what are your goals. And by the way, you can have more than one goal. A lot of guys, you know, they have this mindset, you know, focused on one thing at a time. And our brains are more complex than that. We can actually multitask and do a lot of different things at the same time. For example, here, right now I'm running a business, right? I'm growing the business. But I'm also writing another book. I'm on here talking to you. I'm doing coaching, life coaching, okay, on my spare time from the volley. There's so many other things that I'm doing and developing. I'm making more videos. I got training DVDs coming out. Write an outline for another DVD. So I'm doing like multiple unrelated tasks towards my career objective, so to speak. I'm not just focusing on one thing, because you can focus on more than one thing. You know, you just got to be organized and have a good plan to do that and to manage it. So it comes to time management as well. Well, on that note, so I want to say something real quick about that, because my turning point for me was right before I retired. I had an issue. So I bought when computers first came out, right, 1996-ish time frame. I bought the first compact computer, right, all the bells and whistles. You know, I think we paid like $3,000, and this thing had a 4 gigabyte hard drive. Think about that for a second, 4 gigabyte. That was state of the art, right? But man, well, I was somebody, man. I was everybody that, you know, everybody in the neighborhood was looking up to. And so we got this computer and we set it up in the bedroom. And then I discovered video games, right? And I remember my first video game I put in was a flight simulator for the F117 Raptor, right? And man, that thing was addictive, right? I started putting it in. I figured I'm going to play for 30 minutes, you know, at 8 o'clock at night. And before you know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I got to get up in 2 hours to go to work. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been sitting there for 8 hours playing this stupid game, right? I just got so caught up in it. And I can see how people do that these days. You know, these kids get caught in these games, you know, and it's addictive. And it took me a couple of weeks to kind of wake up one day and go, you know what? Look how much time you spent every day on these games. What are they doing for you? It was at that point I realized they're not doing nothing for me, okay, just wasting my time. I said, you could take that time and do something constructive and productive for yourself and for your family. That's what I looked at, and I thought about my wife and kids. I said, I got to make a better life for them, because I'm going to get out of the Army one day, and playing video games is not going to do that for me. So it was at that moment that literally I broke that damn CD. And the only thing I used that computer for now was studying, for research. And I went back to school, got my master's degree in 1 year. And to this day, I don't play video games anymore. If I get the urge to play a video game, turn the computer on and read something or research something, you know, or work on something else. So the goal, the mission is always to improve your station in life. Of course, you don't live to work, you work to live, right? So that's the other part. You got to enjoy your life. So for me, I have to find balance. So I focus on being productive, and but I also focus on being efficient, so that I have plenty of time left over to have fun. And trust me, I have a lot of fun. My girlfriend and I go out almost every night here in Bali. We go down to Legion Road, Ground Zero, you know, we have the bowling bombings and all the bars. So we go out and hang out all the time. We'll get up early in the morning, and you know, I do coaching calls in the morning, and we go to the gym, and I go to the office, and you know, we do our business. So, but I make time for me, because at the end of the day, you don't live to work, you work to live, you know, and ideally it's good not to work and be able to just live, you know, and that's what I'm working for, less work and more living. And right now I have a pretty good balance of that, you know. And so, again, I don't know, you know, when it comes to the veterans, man, you guys don't cut yourself short. I mean, there's an old saying, with the mind of man can conceive, the hands of man can achieve. And man, your only limitation is you. That's it. You. Look at me. I'm an idiot. Okay. I was, you know, my dad went 11th grade education, mom had 9th grade education. Okay. I didn't have any special gifts. I was a little runt when I was in the Army. Even when I was in Delta, I weighed 165 pounds soaking wet, you know. I wasn't some kind of He-Man. I don't have like a super high IQ. There's nothing super special about me. The only thing that's special, maybe sets me apart from everybody else, is that, you know, I have this sustained determination to keep forging ahead and be the best I can be. And I never quit. And even if I fail, I go back and reattack until I get it right, you know. I just never quit. And that's the key to this whole thing. Just don't give up. People give up too easy.
Oh, that's awesome. Dude, I got to tell you, man, it's been awesome having you on here and letting you share your story. Thanks for letting us into the inside of your crazy-ass world and all the things you're into. It's actually really, really, really cool. It's going to be fun to someday be in a movie with you. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. No, actually, there will be more. You know, my production company, part of this production, I can't call it mine. I'm the poster boy, but I have, you know, shares and ownership in it. But we do quite a few movies, and we're actually doing a zombie, you know, series. They're actually pretty good. They're actually, you know, they're pretty good. They're a lot of fun, and we bring in a lot of vets to play the roles, you know, and play the parts, and you know, and it's a lot of fun. And
I'm okay being, you know, zombie number 21.2 or something.
No, actually, there'll be a role in there for you. But even out in Los Angeles, every now and then I get a call, say, hey, you got any vets that want to come and be a second or whatever, you know, an extra, and I'll put the all call out there and bring them in, you know. Yeah, I just, you know, it's cool, man. You know, it gives guys another perspective, and it's vets looking out for veterans, you know. And the one thing I'll say, too, before I wrap it up with you is that, you know, my mission has always been, even when I went to Hollywood, was never forget where I came from and where my roots are grounded in. And it really is the military culture, because that's how I was raised, with my father in the Army for 20 years. I was in the Army for, you know, 20 years. My son is actually a Green Beret now also, and he's following my footsteps. But, you know, that's my family for all intents and purposes. You know, I like living around the military bases. The mindset is different, the culture is different, and it just feels safer, more secure, and I feel like I'm among, you know, family when I do that. So I always try to do what I can to give something back. Chris Kyle, when we were on the set for Stars and Stripes, that was the first time I had met him. And I saw he had his book, American Sniper, and I thought, you know, I complimented him on the book. Said, wow, you know, it's pretty impressive. And he wrote a book. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and goes, yeah, he goes, I want to grow up and be like you. I want to read your book. And it's simply younger than me at the time, you know. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And I made the decision at that point, yeah, I should write a book, you know. So I called my management team and I said, look, I want to write a book, write an autobiography, but I don't want it to be all about just me, right? And even though that's what an autobiography is, I said I want it to be something where I use my life stories to motivate and inspire other people, particularly young men, to be better people, be better men, soldiers, humans, fathers, whatever, right? Because at the time I looked around, it's like, what's going on with our men in our country? These kids, you know, these millennials and others, man, they're losing their way, you know? And so that's what I wanted to do, is try to inspire at least some percentage of society, you know. If I could save a couple guys, you know, from going down the millennial path, then we're good, you know. So that's why I wrote the book, and the title American Badass. The only reason I use the title American Badass is because in the opening ceremony of the show, there's a one-shot deal. And so what they did was, in fact, General Wesley Clark, he was one of the hosts, and Samantha Harrison. What they did is they introduced everybody on the show, okay? And it came to me and it's introducing, you know, former Delta Force operator. And then I remember Samantha Harris. Okay, this was really blew me away. She goes, former Delta Force operator, former CIA Dale Comstock. And I'm like, what the hell? And so, you know, and they introduced me, and then I had to step up and go, retired Master Sergeant Dale Comstock, United States Army, the Delta Force. So, and then when I said that, all the guys in the back going, American Badass, you know, and kind of that moniker caught on, right? American Badass, right? And so that kind of stuck, and I decided to use it for the title of the book. But when people, you know, and I've actually had people give me a ration of shit about the title, you know, A badass doesn't have to tell people he's badass. Like, well, you didn't read the book, right? You judge the cover of the book by the content, right?
Right. Well, I haven't seen your cape yet, so, I mean, if you're really a badass, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's not about being a badass. And that's what the book's about. And I laugh. It's actually about being a good ass, That's what makes you a badass as far as I'm concerned, that you try to be as good a soldier as you can be, as good a human being, father. That's what it's about, being a good citizen of our country. And that's the message I try to, convey. So, of course, I did that because I want people to look at it and go, what the hell? And then if you look at the front cover, I'm not wearing a shirt, I'm all yoked and stuff. I got a chain around my neck. So it's like, well, this is like about a prison guy, a convict, or, the chicks go look at it. It goes, hey, is this about a male stripper? So it kind of make you think about what's going on inside that book, so you have to read it. But you asked me, the second part of the question before also was, where am I going to go from here on out? So my goal is, like my other companies, is not to sell this company. I want to grow this company and be the next Blackwater of Southeast Asia. I'm going to grow this thing, and basically it's going to be something that I hand off to my kids, their families, and keep alive. Because the reality is, when I started my first company in 2001, my partner and I like, okay, we got to really build this thing up, make it worth a lot of money, really attractive to sell and get rid of it because security is going to go away one day, right? We just thought it was going to be a fleeting moment, And so I look back, I'm like, man, I should have never sold that company. I'd be like huge right now. In fact, I was competing against Blackwater because Blackwater was still getting their legs under them. So having learned my lessons from that, is I realized that, the world is never going to be any safer. It's not going to be more secure. It's going to get worse. Even here in Southeast Asia, the caliphate is moving here. There are a lot of bad guys here, particularly in Indonesia. We're having a lot of ISIS guys coming back. We've got JI here. So you've got bad dudes coming here and planting the flag and stirring the pot. So there's always going to be a need for security, not just in Indonesia, but all throughout Southeast Asia and all throughout the world. So having that to sell this company, it'll have longevity for sure long before I'm dead, because there'll always be a need for it. And so that's my goal, is to keep this thing going, keep building it in different countries, and kind of planting that seed, so to speak. And then I don't know, the people run it, and so I go off and do acting stuff or whatever I want to go do, write books or whatever.
Well, you're not good enough to be a male stripper anymore, so
no,
get a little long in the tooth, brother. That's awesome, man.
I got the moves though. Yeah.
Dale, man, I got to tell you, it's been a true pleasure having you on here. And, here's how I like to wrap up every show, and I do stump some people when I do this, so be forewarned. If you were going to leave my audience with one phrase, one slogan, mantra, motto, quote, something they can take with them on their journey, especially if they're going through the tough times and trying to figure out, how do they keep going, what would be that phrase or quote you would say, remember this?
Yeah, you know what? Good. That's a good point. Everybody always says, don't quit. Don't quit. Of course, no, of course don't quit. We already know that. But what I always say to myself, particularly, is nothing's ever as bad as it first seems, right? Because whenever we run into a situation in life, an issue, we're like, oh my God, it's like, we think the worst. And then we realize, down the road and look back, man, it wasn't so bad after all. So I realized what that does for me is calm me down right away, no matter how bad the situation is. If I got a phone call right now and say, hey, your daughter was in a very bad car accident, blah, 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 you come home, the first thing racing through my mind, she's gonna die before I get there, and all this bad stuff. And it could be that it could actually happen, but then if I usually find out it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, or I learn to accept it a little bit better, with a little bit of time. But I always say that, nothing's ever as bad as it first seems, because we can always blow things way out of proportion. So don't panic. Take a knee, drink some water, and then Charlie, Mike, and then, I do come to power with every defeat. I'm more resilient. Just remember, every time you succeed at something, it emboldens you to do more and more. And if you fail at it, don't quit. Go back to it and keep going back to the drawing board and keep punching at it until you get what you want. That's the only way you're going to get ahead in life. Nothing's for free. Nobody's going to give you nothing. Nobody's giving me nothing. There's been a few guys that helped me along a little bit, give me a hand up, and they're veterans. But aside from that, for the most part, most people in the world aren't going to help you. They're going to let you. They want to see you fail because they don't want to feel bad because they fail, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
That's all I can really say.
No, that's awesome. Dale, thanks for coming on the show, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, Get My Social Content Done right now.